Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Mental Training Room. This is your host, Haley Herdman. I'm a former Division I basketball player and current mental health therapist.
And I am Naomi Yim, also a former Division I basketball player and a current real estate investor with a passion for athlete mental health.
Throughout our time as collegiate athletes, Naomi and I struggled with our emotional well-being, and we know from this experience how neglected the mental aspect of sports can be, which is why we created this podcast, to foster a safe space for other athletes to open up about their own experiences.
Whether you are an athlete, coach, parent, or anyone with an athlete in their circle, we hope you can gain some insight from our episodes. And the most important thing we hope you can take from our podcast is that you are never alone in your struggles.
Now, let's get into it. Welcome to the Mental Training Room. Elite athletes know performance isn't just about what you do in the game. It's about how you prepare and how you recover. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Defend USA. If you want to stay in peak shape, you can't afford to ignore the power of recovery. That's where Defend USA comes in. Trusted by the NBA, WNBA, MLB, NCAA, and beyond, Defend USA's compression gear is designed to help you train harder, recover faster, and perform at your best. Their military-grade compression technology boosts circulation, reduces muscle fatigue, and helps prevent injury, so you can push limits without breaking down. That's why the best athletes don't just train hard, they recover smarter. Level up your recovery, level up your game. Check out Defend USA at dfndusa.com and at dfndusa on Instagram, and get the gear trusted by the pros. Because true champions don't just train hard, they recover harder. In today's episode, we have a really fun guest named Sae La Chin. She is a former Rockette and former Broadway star and lifelong dancer. Sayla was in the Broadway production of Wonderland in 2011 as an ensemble, and in White Christmas in 2008, also part of the ensemble. She just has such a rich history in the dance culture. She's faced so many of her own mental challenges, and now she is a mom of two amazing boys who are going to be such phenomenal athletes. The wisdom and insight she has from her own experience as a competitive athlete and performer is going to set them up for so much success. And Sayla and I are neighbors, and my little brother is best friends with her youngest son. So it's been such a fun relationship to be able to create, and I'm so excited for you all to be able to learn a little bit from Sayla. So I hope you enjoy this episode.
Sweet.
Good morning, Miss Sayla. Welcome to the Mental Training Room. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Haley. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes.
This is awesome.
Okay, well, just to start off, what is something good that's happened to you recently, or anything that you're looking forward to, just to kind of start off our conversation today?
Oh my gosh. Okay. The first thing I think about is my neighbor gave me a popcorn maker.
Oh my gosh.
It goes in the microwave. It's not the kind that it's not toxic. Like, you don't put the bags in. It's a glass jar. And you could put the popcorn kernels and some butter on top, and it melted down. I put it in the microwave for 3 minutes. And I've had it for a week. I love that so much. Every time I look at it, I get so happy, and every day I want to eat my popcorn. So that is something good that happened to me, and I love it.
That sounds amazing. How often do you eat popcorn? Like when you're watching
Well, okay, that's the problem. No, that's the problem is I want to eat it every day for no reason, because I think I like the crunch of it. So I've been eating them every day. Okay, every day.
Okay, amazing. So are you more of a butter popcorn or like sweet popcorn?
Well, you know what? If I could, I would do sweet all the time, but it gets too sweet. So I just prefer just a teeny bit of butter, but just real simple. I mean, even dry.
Yeah,
I love it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I might have to get one of those. That sounds
You have to get it. It's so good.
so cool. Okay, well, let's get into it. So, Miss Sayla, you were a former Rockette, Broadway star, and lifelong dancer. Those are like I get the chills. I get the chills saying that. That is such an amazing background to have.
So nice of you to say that.
How did you first get involved with dance? Kind of give us like a timeline of your career, if you will.
Yeah. So I have two sisters, one older, one younger, and my mom got us into dance when we were really little. Like we were maybe
Okay.
5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, I don't even know. And she wanted us to do that because she always wanted to dance when she was living in South Korea. And at the time, just wasn't like proper, like for, I don't know. Hopefully that's changed, but her parents just did not think it was proper for her to be dancing. And so she sort of lived through us through the dancing. And fortunately, like we just loved it, and we were always in the same class. It didn't matter what level, what age group we were in. We just did it all together. And
Yeah.
we were never in competition with each other. And I know that sounds really weird to say that, like, oh yeah, right. But we weren't. We were never
Yeah.
like that because my mom didn't pin us against each other. It was like, it was almost like there's more power in the numbers, like more power of you guys being together. And so that's how we started. And we did everything: ballet, tap, jazz, modern point, hip hop. Not so good at that, but did all of that stuff, which was a blessing because when I ended up moving to New York on a scholarship to the Martha Graham School, background of having all of that foundation of doing all types was a huge blessing because it helped me to get jobs. And so went to undergrad and grad for dance, and then I ended up in New York and I booked jobs. I hustled like crazy. I got rejected, pushed down, got back up again. Yeah, and then eventually made it to Broadway. And yeah, so it's been a journey. I mean, it's been my whole life.
Yeah. Sounds like it. So in undergrad, can you share a little bit about your experience as a dancer in college?
Yes. So I went to UC Irvine.
Okay.
Your dad. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And my mom's. And
Oh, okay. It's family, girl.
yeah.
So I went to UC Irvine. I wasn't my first choice, but I went there not even realizing how good the dance department was. I was so lucky. I was so lucky that I was put in that I got to go to that school because it had an incredible professor named Donald McHale, and everybody wanted Donald McHale at their school, but he picked that one because he had told me that of all the UC schools and all the schools that wanted him, they were the kindest to his wife. Yeah, and so you know what, being kind,
Yeah.
it's so priceless. So because of him in that school, I grew so much because
Oh my gosh.
he kind of like took me under his wing with a few other people, and he was my mentor, and I never had a mentor before. And then I also never met a professional dancer. Like I never met somebody who had gone through a career. I didn't even know it could be a career.
Yeah.
No idea. And I know
Wow.
that sounds great. I just didn't because I didn't know anybody who had did it professionally after the studio. And so when I was a junior at UC Irvine, he was like, "Oh yeah, you could, he started this pre-professional company with me, two other girls and two guys." And he's like, he's gonna set numbers. He had choreographed years ago on us, like classic pieces. And then we were gonna tour and do it and perform it like real dancers. And that's the first window into professional dancing. And then that's, I think about, what I was thinking about was, okay, so today, maybe people jump around a lot in schools,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe in sports and things like that. And I understand it because maybe there's an enticement on this side. You can't say no to that. But there was something so gratifying and so rewarding to be in one school for 4 years.
Yeah.
The growth that I had from my first year to my last, I mean, it made me a dancer. And I can't imagine like jumping and having to like reintroduce yourself to another group of professors and trying to learn what they know and they're trying to learn you. There's something about being able to train and grow in one.
Yeah. I think you are so right with that. And even just the connections that you're able to build within being in a place for 4 years. Like, I'm sure the connections, even if there were to be a transfer or whatnot, I'm sure the connections would stay, but you have that opportunity to really foster something stronger than you would if you're kind of bouncing around, like you said.
Yeah, right. I mean, you think about that. You're setting the foundation.
Yeah. And it sounds like dance, it might be a little bit different than other sports because it sounds like you kind of had a professor who did you have dance classes like that you studied?
Yeah, like history, dance history, and lab notation. Yeah, all of that. I mean,
That's so cool.
The whole curriculum. I mean,
Yeah.
it really gave you the opportunity if performing wasn't the direction you wanted to go, maybe you wanted to teach dance history or maybe choreography was your thing and your heart and soul. So maybe you could go into the choreography side of the business. I mean, it allowed you to see that there were different avenues.
Gosh, that's awesome. I can't imagine taking like a basketball history.
I know. Could you imagine?
That would be so funny.
First of all, it wouldn't even feel like a class. You'd be like, yeah, I know all this already. Yeah, tell me more. Yep. Yeah, adding like tidbits.
Exactly. Did you feel like you knew most of the stuff you were studying, or was it all okay?
No, Haley, I did not know. Because, when do you know? I mean, I knew of like the most, like, the major players.
Yeah.
Do you really know their background and their history? Not really. I mean, if you love them for, they're your favorite, you'll look into everything. But I didn't know a lot about dance history. I didn't realize, how in some ways it was so unseen. Even as like a lifelong dancer, I didn't know a lot of things about like different parts of, let's say, the modern dance history part of it. Because it was more new than it was the classical side. So yeah, I mean, I just think that it's kind of like an untold history, which is too bad. But when you're a dancer, you need to know.
Exactly. Just to kind of fully be like immersed in that culture. I'm sure it gives you a lot of insight as you're actually performing and doing all of that the dance requires of you.
But you know what else though? Is that one of my professors told me that this is in grad school in NYU. It's good to know everything about the dance. It's good to know everything about what you're doing, but you need to be well-rounded. You need to read the news. You need to know the global aspects of the world. Like, because she says you bring that to the table as a performer. So it's important to actually not just be so square pegged into that part of it, but to know more about other things.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, let's get into your grad school.
Oh, my grad school
career.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you went from UCI.
Yeah, it wasn't like a right away afterwards thing. It was like UCI, got a scholarship, moved to New York, was there for a year on a scholarship to Martha Graham School, and my parents were like, "Yeah, no, you can't. You have to come home." And it was a bargaining thing. I was like, "Okay, well then." I knew they wanted me to be a professor, so I was like, "Well, I'll go to grad school." And they were like, "Okay." So it was like a bargaining chip. I wasn't actually I wasn't going to do anything with it. So
Right. But it sounded like you were.
Yes. And, and it's hard because they're a different generation of mind thinking. They don't know what this is. I didn't know what it was. And they didn't see the value of it as much because they didn't have that in their life. So the culture difference was huge. So I was like, okay, I'll go to grad school. So I did. I went to grad school for 2 years. And that actually, so I was dancing at the Met Opera Ballet during that time. So I would miss classes so that I would go do performances at the.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember one of the teachers was like, "Are you serious about your grad degree? Because you can't just keep missing." And I was like, the back of my mind, I was like, "No, I'm not serious."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Of course." I'm like, "Of course I'm serious."
Yeah.
Yes, I will try not to miss any more classes. But the beautiful thing about grad school is that it definitely does, I'm sure, like, hones in your skill, right? Like it takes you on another level because you're taking all that time to learn, educate yourself in it even deeper. Interesting enough, like I went in there just to like appease my parents, but I ended up meeting my second year there. I met Anne Reinking. Anne Reinking was Bob Fosse, a super huge legend in dance, Bob Fosse's protege and basically star. And it was random. She had come in to do a workshop and she was like, just, it was like a week thing. And I thought, okay, whatever, she's here, we'll do it. And I started doing it and I was like, what is this Fosse thing? It's incredible style. It's like everything's turned in and your body's like all sexy and like all fun. And she goes, oh, by the way, we're doing a non-equity tour of Fosse on the road. Come audition for it. And then I was like thinking, oh my gosh, okay. I don't even know what that is. It's like my first like Broadway audition.
Oh my God.
Mind you, when I say Broadway, I mean like down and dirty Broadway, non-equity tour, nobody's giving you any money type of Broadway show. And we like a bunch of us went to audition and somebody was like, you have to sing. I was like, sing what? Like what? What are you talking about? And so I actually found, not even knowing the show, a song. It's in the show. I don't know how that got lucky. It's called Big Spender.
Okay.
The minute you walked in the joint. Okay, anyways, I haven't said that song.
I'll have to listen to it after this.
Yeah, you have to listen to Big Spender. It's so good. It's like there's like a bar on stage, like a little, like literal, like dance bar. And then the hanging over it, like,
oh my goodness,
like the 80th hour that they've been in the club and you're hanging over it and everybody kind of like has like a cigarette hanging out of their mouth and each person has like a line. It's like, hey sir, what's, like, I like your hair, or like something like that. And then we all start singing it and then it's so good.
That's amazing.
So I ended up taking that song and I ended up dancing and going in and singing because, I made it through the dance cut. And then you're like, okay, now you have to sing in front of in a table full of casting directors. And I just started singing and I was dancing with it. I was like doing back bends and like,
oh my gosh.
Afterwards, they were like, yeah, you're not supposed to dance. You're supposed to stand still. I was like, oh no, that's not what I did. But I think it helped me because I did get that tour.
Amazing.
Bus and truck, and that introduced me to musical theater because I'd only known like classical, modern, tap, and this was like musical theater, and I always kind of looked down at it because I thought, maybe not the good dancers do musical theater. I was very wrong. I was very wrong. It's okay because you're small-minded until you learn. And
Right.
I did the music, and then we went on a bus and truck, literally truck. No, sorry, bus. Truck took our scenes and props and stuff. But it was a bus, and we were in the bus, the entire cast, side by side, and we traveled the entire country for 1 year.
That's so cool.
And we're still today good friends. We still talk.
I love that.
On a thread and everything on text and stuff.
Really is the best. I mean, just I think of that similar to like having teammates is like you go through such hard and exciting times together that bond is just always going to be there. And it's such a special connection to have.
But when you go through this bond in a more grueling way, it's even it's like cemented. It's like we dug dirt.
Trauma bonding, right?
Yeah, it's like trauma bonding. Oh my gosh, do you remember? Yes, you remember this, and it's like forever. And then you could laugh at it, and then be like, oh my gosh, can't believe we did that.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I feel like I should have given this disclaimer. I'm a huge Broadway musical theater fan, which but I don't think the listeners know that. That's like a fun fact about me. So hearing all of this, and this isn't the first time you and I have talked about this, but I just love hearing your stories. Like, it is so cool and I feel like that's what I love the most about Broadway, musical theater, live performances is just the amount of like work that goes into it, and to see these performers doing it live so well, and to think of them doing it over and over and over again is like mind blowing. But I don't know, it's so, it always just like makes my jaw drop, because I think of it as like, okay, like basketball players or athletes, soccer, other type of athletes, like, yes, they also have to go through that in a way of like live performances. But I think what's different is like, we memorize plays or whatnot, but it's not always the same thing. Whereas for you and for other dancers or musical theater performers, like it has to be spot on every time. Like if you mess up a line, it might throw off the show, or it might not, receive well. I'm sure there's, improv and stuff that you guys can do to kind of fix it in the moment, but it's like, I don't know, it's such a work of art to me. It's amazing. I love it.
How did you get into that? How did you even know it was a thing? How did you grow the love for it?
Well, as you know, I was in drama in middle school.
Yes, I know.
For the listeners, so my drama teacher, Mr. Levy, he wrote this play called Punk White, and I was the star in it, like the main character, Punk White. And then that was in like, what?
Sixth grade?
Sixth grade, yeah. So 20.
I know this because my son just did it in sixth grade. Yeah.
What was I don't know however many years it was, but like 2012, he just redid it with Sae La's son, and Sae La's son was the narrator.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
So cool. Yeah. So I don't know. I think just being in drama myself, I think that's how I grew to love it. And then my mom always, like, we saw Wicked when we were like 6 years old.
So beautiful.
In Hollywood. So just growing up around it, my mom loving it. We were huge Glee fans as well.
Yeah. Can I show everybody a picture of you?
Oh my gosh.
When you were in, I think this is in sixth grade. Oh, hold on. I don't know if you can see it. Hold on. It's a little hard to tell.
Oh my gosh. Wait, where did you get that?
I met.
Where's that?
It's a yearbook picture. So I met a friend of yours. We can talk about this later, but like, I met a friend of yours, and he's one of the teachers at Meadows, Manhattan Beach.
No way.
And he was like, for some reason we were like connected because of you. And he said, oh, do you know her? And blah, blah, blah. And he went back and looked in his yearbook, and he showed me that yesterday. And I was like, OMG.
That is so
You couldn't be more cute and so sweet looking. So I wanted to show that to you. So imagine that little one. Imagine that little one doing the lead part. And so you guys went to do that, and you went to see Wicked, and you were like Glee fans. So you love it.
It's in my blood.
You love it. I mean, the fact that you were not even a performer and you got the lead role in the play.
I know.
And that's a spicy role.
Yeah, it's crazy to think
spicy.
Yeah. Well, I definitely have a feisty side, so I think that's probably where it was used to my advantage. But I even have dreams still of forgetting like the opening monologue. It's so cool.
Isn't that? I do too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Isn't that so insane? And doesn't it feel so real?
Yeah, it does.
I have a reoccurring dream of the Rockettes and
Oh my
being
gosh.
ready on time and then not knowing the dance when the curtain opens. And
No.
imagine, the Radio City Music Hall is like, it's ginormous. There's like 6,000 seats in front of you. Mind you, you
Yeah.
can't see all of them, but you feel the vastness in front of you.
Oh yeah.
But I have like literal dreams where I'll wake up and I'll feel like it actually happened. And I'm like, I feel bad. I'm like, oh no. And then I have to like snap out of it. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Wake up.
no. 50-year-old woman now. It's okay. That was forever ago. Don't worry about it. Moving on. It's real. Yeah.
It is. It is so real. Several years out,
Several you. Thank you, Haley. Just kidding.
what was that pressure like actually like being in it, whether it was grad school on Broadway in the Rockettes? Like, can you describe what that pressure felt like for you?
Well, the pressure in grad school and stuff like that is so different. I think the pressure performing, trying to make it to Broadway, it's so intense. I think it's like, because dance is it's like uses every muscle in your body. It's a very physical form, right, of something. And because you're physically so in tune, you can feel your emotions, I think, even more sharp. Like it just feels like it. And so you're doing all of this thing where you're like in constant training, and you're doing everything. And then when you get to the performing, like when you get to the auditioning side, it's like you're constantly on, always on.
Right.
You can't be prepared. You have to show up, and it's exhausting. And then let's say you don't get the show, and you almost got the show and you didn't get the show. It's like dealing with the pressures of not of being rejected.
Right.
And you're thinking to myself, is this ever going to happen? Oh, I can't even imagine how many times I've said that. Is this ever going to happen? I think having a group of, like a community of people, whether it be like one person or like 10, just a group of people that understand you, that are maybe going through the same thing, but somebody who tells you, you're gonna get the next one. You're so close. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. And I had that core group of friends, dance friends. We were all in it together. We all wanted it together, and we were all very different, which was great because we knew there'd always be a space for each of us. We just needed to get it. It was just like a matter of like when, and I think my younger sister, Eula, I don't think she ever stopped saying that to me. Like, you got this. You got this. You're gonna make it. You're gonna get you're gonna get, like, it's gonna be the next one. You got this. You're so close. Like, she used to say that to me all the time. And imagine, I was in New York 15 years. That was a lot of support talk for her.
Yeah.
I forgot the question you asked me. Like, was it the pressures or?
Yeah, talking about the pressures. But on that note of what you said of having that support system around you, that is, I feel like, make or break. Because as an athlete, we know how hard that self-talk can be and how negative it can get. And if you get too internal, I can see how that might have maybe restricted you from going out to more auditions or putting yourself out there even more. But to have that external group and to have them pick you up and be there for you, and knowing too that, like, I feel like that's a great way to not really indulge your whole identity into it too, because even if you don't get the part, like, you're still going to have people that are there who love you and who support you. Like, they're not your friends just because that you got this one role or because you're an NYU student. Like, they love you for who you are, for who Sae La is, not just the dance part of Sae La. And that sounds so important and crucial to that process, because it does seem like so much, like, being so vulnerable, putting yourself out there open to rejection so many times.
I mean, so many times. I mean, you think about like what you're saying about it when you get knocked down, and then you have people that tell you, and then also like knowing that it's not personal.
Right.
Like, it's not like you're the worst person in town and you're not going to get the part. It's bigger than that, right? And somebody has to tell you, like, hey, it's okay. Like, it's gonna happen. You just have to keep going. That's the thing about what I learned, and what I see maybe doesn't happen as much today, is that when you get knocked down, and somebody says no, you don't take it and you go, okay, thanks, all right, yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, you could do that, but we never did that. You get knocked down, you cry, peel yourself off with a spatula, you get back up there, and you're like, okay, next one. Yeah, it does start to become like noise in the background when you get rejected over and over again. Does it hurt less? No, it still hurts like a big, big, big mama hurt, punch in the face. But you learn to know where to, like, you learn to use that as your motivation to do better.
Yes.
Right. And I think that some people maybe some kids today don't realize the importance of resilience and commitment and not taking no for an answer. When people tell me no, and I'm like, really? Why no? There's got to be a yes in there. I just don't think that you can stop somewhere. It has to keep going. You got to keep. Yeah. So, I was going to say something else, but
that is amazing what you just said right there. And even knowing too, like if you get rejected from one role, that doesn't mean that you're rejected from all other roles. Like, okay, maybe that might not be for you, or that team, or whatever it might be, a job. Like, okay, maybe that's not meant for you, but there's other things out there. And to even in like relationships too, of like if someone, breaks up with you or whatever, like, okay, they're just not my person. That's just not my job. That's just not my role. But that doesn't mean anything about me. Like I can find a space where I fit in. And I think that's important to remember.
That is super important. And that's really scary, and it's really hard to do. But yeah, same thing with relationships. If I can do that again, man, I would do that so differently.
Yeah.
To realize like the first one may not be the one. And that is a-okay. I wish someone would have told me that.
Yeah.
But like it could be the second or third. But you have to remember that you earn that time on stage. You earn the time on the court. You have to earn that moment. You're not going to just get it because you were good and you worked harder as hard. No. You don't get that just because you worked hard and you were the best in your thing. Like, no, you have to earn that spot, and you have to earn keeping that spot. Because there's somebody behind you in performing. It's like it'll tear your guts apart. You think you'll get a part in the show and you're like, so fantastic. And you turn around, there's somebody behind you wearing your costume. You're like, they're on when you're done. Like, dang, they're like on your coattails. I mean, I think that feeling of like never settling. Settle. Just because you get something, you don't just sit there and be like, I got this is great, blah, blah, blah. No, that's where the work starts. And you get better and you get better and you get better. Because now in my life I have 2 boys and I know your family, and we like, just the way that the world is growing and how we're connecting. Basketball is big in my life. I didn't know anything about it before. I still don't know very much about it, but I know enough about it to understand the strategy and things like that in some ways. But I think players tend to like settle and like literally physically sit in their seat on the court and not expect to get up. I'm like, I would be begging.
Yeah.
I would be pleading to be allowed to play. And if I messed up, I would practice so hard and I would show them like, I can do better this time. Like, how do you even if you weren't a starter, you can grow to be a starter. You could be a starter because you know why? Somebody could get injured. And that was another thing too in dance when I first moved to New York. And this really amazing teacher told me, I had asked her, I was like, what is the thing you wish you want? What is one piece of what's that word? Advice you would give to me as I'm moving to New York? And she said, you have one time to, wait, what is that word? Now I can't remember what it was said. You have one chance to make a good first impression. So she's like, don't blow it. I was like, oh, one chance to make a first good impression? Shit. Ooh. So it stayed with me. It's resonated. It simmered. It cooked in there. I think it still is today, to this day. You think about just like in interviews for jobs or things like that. Like you need to know how to sell yourself. If you do not know your worth and you do not know how to put it out there right away without being asked, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it. You have to be your biggest advocate. You're not being braggy or like egotistical or things like that. It is if you put a big sign outside and you say, good, look how good I am. But if you're in a position where you're trying to get something, you put your best self forward and you tell everything about yourself. You have to know how to do that. That's like for any job out there. Like when you're audition, I used to work in, what I do my real job after performing.
Yeah.
I was working in recruiting, and I saw so many people just like get on the call and be like, wah, wah, and I'm like trying to pull, and I'm thinking to myself, no, you're the one showing me you want the job, not vice versa.
Right.
So I just think that you need to know what your worth is. You need to know that when you go into anything, a new team, a new school, a new job, a new relationship, what is your worth? Are you worth it? Yes, that's where you start.
This episode is sponsored by PhysioWorks Physical Therapy. Sports aren't just about skill, it's about strength. And I'm not just talking about physical strength. Athletes train their bodies, push their limits, and build muscle to perform at their best. But what happens when injury strikes, or when movement just doesn't feel right? That's where PhysioWorks physical therapy comes in. PhysioWorks isn't just about recovery, it's about unlocking your full potential. Their expert team helps you rebuild strength, improve mobility, and prevent future injuries so you can get back to doing what you love. Because strong muscles create strong athletes. But here's the thing, physical strength is only half the game. Mental strength? That's what separates you from the great. Just like you train your body, you've got to train your mind. Confidence, resilience, and focus don't just happen. They take work. At PhysioWorks Physical Therapy in Redondo Beach, California, they understand that true performance is both physical and mental. So whether you're rehabbing an injury or leveling up your game, don't just push through the pain. Work with the best. Because a strong body fuels a strong mind. And when both are in sync, that's when you truly win.
Well, with everything that you just shared about those pressures, do you feel like there were any negatives or anything that really impacted your mindset or your mental health negatively, or anything within all of that that was like really hard to deal with? Because yes, you have a one chance to make a good first impression, but that alone, it's such a weighted statement. So do you feel like that really had an effect on you at all?
Gosh, you're like, "Was there anything negative?" Yes, Haley. Yes, Miss Haley, there's like 1,000 negatives, 1,000 pains, because it's a constant. It was so many negatives. I think because there's so many negatives, I had to find a way to find the positive. It looks so glamorous, right? Anything does, like a sports team or,
Right.
being on Broadway, being a Rockette. You
Yeah.
look at the Rockette and you're like, "Oh my God, it's so dazzling and so
Yeah.
beautiful." And you see the final product of all the grueling hours of rehearsals, the constant, like, just you're doing the same movements over and over and over and over again, right? Like, you're practicing it. It's not about, like, you're not practicing it to be, like, perfect or anything like that, because ultimately, like, there is no perfect. And even in dance, they don't say they never be like, they're not, that nobody, no teachers ever said to me, "That was perfect." No. And it wasn't like, "Can you just try to get to perfect?" No, it was like, "Master it."
Wow.
Do it so many times that you can do it with muscle memory,
Yeah.
where you're in a show and you could, like, totally just have, like, a blackout, but doesn't matter because you practice it so many times, your body can do it anyway, like that. And I think that that's probably something that is so grueling and so hard to do, and it's could be so negative because you have to keep telling yourself, like, push through, push through, push through. You have injuries and all this stuff. Like, so many things that are up against you. But at the end of the day, like, do you want it or not? Do you want it? I mean, nobody can want it for you.
And it really goes into like how much intrinsic motivation you
Yeah.
have, because it reminds me of something that Paige said from UConn when she was like, you see the 2,000 points, but you don't see the 2,000 hours or days or whatever of hard work that goes into that. And it's so true. And I think kind of going back to the younger generation now, especially with social media, they see all these glamorous things. Like they see the bus rides, the private jets, traveling, all of that stuff, but they don't, it's not shown what it takes to get there. And I'm so glad that you pointed that out, because it really is like, even talking about it, like being removed from it, I find myself watching like March Madness right now and being like, oh, I miss it. Like that is so fun. But then I'm like, wait, no, the beep test, the days of cry, like all of that stuff. Okay, maybe I missed parts of it, but the whole experience, like there is so much more that meets the public eye. And I think that's so great that you brought that up. Do you feel like because I know for me, there's been a lot of things that I've had to unlearn as a competitive athlete, like just like work, because my work ethic got me to where I was and kept me afloat during my years of college, doing things all the time, always, having my homework done, being on top of things, like all of those things played into a lot of like just overarching anxiety for a large part of my life. And being out of sport, I still was having that like anxious feeling and the anxiety, but realizing like, okay, I don't always have to be on now. I don't always have to be performing my best in every second. Like it's okay if I have like a bad day, like nothing's going to happen. Do you feel like you have have had like lasting effects because of your training and the pressure that you face in the dance world, or anything that you are still working on kind of like unlearning or trying to like reframe mentally?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you just said. When you're always on and then you
Yeah.
push yourself into the ground, it's like
Yeah.
learning that you don't always have to do that. It doesn't have to be
Right.
that hard. You don't have to
Right.
push yourself that. I mean, you do push yourself, but you don't have to get yourself down into the ground so hard that you gave everything away. It's
Right.
like now it's like, okay, well, I don't need to do 100,000% for this all the time. I can just do
Right.
50 and it's enough, right? Because I think when you're striving to be great and amazing,
Yeah.
you're giving 120% like all the
Yes.
time. It's exhausting. When we moved back to California from New York after I retired, I think that was what, like, anyways, look at me telling you like, oh, it was so many years ago. I'm not gonna tell you. But I remember it was over 10 years ago. Like when I came back, I remember feeling like so exhausted from the grind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally, I think it took me a couple of years to get over that
Yeah.
because it's so constant and you don't know it when you're doing it. And you don't
Yes.
realize the level of how much pressure that gives to your body and your mind.
Yeah, it's a lot. What in those 2 years, what did you notice that like for example, for me, I after college, my schedule was always like on my calendar, I had something back to back to back, thinking that
Yeah, I
I
know.
had to be doing something all the time. When
Yeah.
I finally realized, like, no, that doesn't have to be the reality. Is there anything that you noticed, like, in those 2 years, kind of like after retirement or like the beginning of retirement,
Yeah.
that you noticed, like, okay, I don't need to be doing this anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it starts way before retirement, actually. It's like you get to like a point where you kind of start to hit where you want to hit if you're lucky
Yeah.
and blessed to do it. So once you get to the Broadway, it's like so you're doing it and you're like you do it until the show goes and then you audition and you have a better chance to get the next show because you've had that experience and then you get there and then you realize at some level that you don't have to all of that hustle and grind doesn't have to be all the time because
Yeah.
you put the work in, right? But
Right.
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think when I think about what you just said, I think about like the fact that your dad is a coach and your
Yeah.
dad took you guys and your sister like through the whole thing. And my youngest is besties with your brother, your little
Yeah.
brother. And so I see your dad being like, hey, anyone up for practice today?
Yeah.
Anyone up for practice on and I'm thinking to myself, once I even responded, ooh, that's early. And then I remember thinking, what am I
Yeah.
saying? Like he's giving us the opportunity. I'm like, slap, slap. Like, but you grew up with that. I had the same thing. My mom was a tiger mom. I mean, I'm not saying your dad's sorry, coach. I'm not saying you're a tiger
Borderline.
mom. No, but like my mom was full on, not borderline tiger mom. I mean, she would be the one that was like, how like go your leg can go higher. Only one turn? No, you can try
Yeah.
2 turns. Like private lessons, like we used to play instruments and we would have to practice 1 hour every single day before school, before we could do anything. There was not a day we missed, not a day we missed. And when I didn't have that anymore, oh my gosh, I was like, it was like a feeling of guilt, like you're not spending your time wisely.
Yeah.
You're not growing, you're not doing the best you can. But that's an extreme. What we grew up with is an extreme, but it also was like, okay, well, now you know how far you can go and how good you can get, right?
Yeah.
Because you know, like how much, if you don't push yourself to go like 8 feet further, you're never gonna know. You're never
Yeah.
gonna know. So
Yeah.
you have to do that. And
Yeah.
it's hard because sometimes I don't do that now, but I realize like I don't have to, but sometimes I do and I
Mhm.
should. But it's a give
Right.
and take.
Well, now it's a balance of, being your own individual woman, being grown up, having those lessons, and it's finding what works for you now. It's finding that balance between pushing yourself, but also realizing that, okay, if I don't, like, it's okay. I'm not gonna like lose a job. I'm not gonna lose a role.
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
not
but
gonna,
that's hard though. It's hard
right.
when you feel
Yeah.
that guilt or you feel like,
Yes.
should I be? Could I be? Because
Yeah.
you're such a used to living in a high level daily life. It's
Yes.
really hard there's a lot of guilt with it. I know.
Yeah.
But you
And
realize, yeah.
well, I was just going to say, going back to like my dad, I think what is great, I don't know about me being in it, I was like, oh, this is like another practice, another whatever. But at the same time, we loved it. And I think that's a great indicator of like, for parents who might be coaching their kids now, of my dad does it because he loves the sport. And he's teaching Cole, to my little brother, to love it too. So that's, I think, a great kind of way to like motivate your kids too, is that passing down the love for the sport and not just the like, you need to be in the gym right now because you have to be the best. Like it's because we love it. Like it creates friends. You know, Coley and Finley get to hang out on the weekends. Like it's just the best time for them. And like even the playing cards that he gets and like that he trades with his friends. Like it's just like the culture of it, which I think is so awesome. And that brings me like to question, like want to ask you this question. How do you think your upbringing with your parents and in this sport of dance will affect the way that you raise your kids now in whatever sport they choose to pursue?
Dang, Haley, that's a deep question. But can I just go back to like the love and stuff? It's like love is contagious because when the kids like when you're the parents feeling it and then the kids feel it, and then like their friends feel it, it's a beautiful thing.
It's
like
so
it just keeps like jumping, right? So my parents are from South Korea. I was born in South Korea. We're like the 0.5 generation because it's like I was born there, but I came. They're very traditional, super traditional. My mom wanted to dance. She couldn't, wasn't allowed. And so she had to grow up like that. And then she actually was a singer and a pianist. And so she did get to do that. But, my dad came from like a Air Force pilot, background. He was a Taekwondo instructor, had a studio in Korea where a lot of American soldiers were his students. And so he grew up very strict and things like that. And so my parents actually, my mom wanted us to dance at the beginning, we were little, and my dad was like, yeah, no way, Jose. He would like take our dance shoes and like throw it in the trash. And then my mom had to go into the trash and grab it. And then like, we would be doing performances and my dad would be like, why are you doing this? And my mom would be like, it's so good for them. Like it was like a constant battle.
Yeah.
Eventually he got on board. And then I think actually my mom saw it more of like enhancement of myself. Like in the terms, I know this sounds so old fashioned, but it made me marriageable in her eyes. Like she thought, okay, well, shows you in a better light because you have like this thing you're good at, or, it's like something like that. She thought it was like an asset, but eventually it turned into a passion. And she didn't expect it, and neither did my dad. So when we went to school for it, they were like, yeah, that's fine because it's school. And then it was like, oh, you want to be professional? Like, what? No way, Jose. So can I say to you, like, oh, my parents were super supportive of me the entire professional career of my life? No, they were the opposite. They probably tried to get me to come back home and stop probably the entire, I would say 14 and a half years. I say the last 6 months because they just finally gave up at that point. But it was like, dang, how long are you gonna fight me on this? But I think that was probably the hardest thing. You would think like, oh, it's the grind of the rehearsals and auditions and getting back again. But no, it was actually like convincing my parents that this was a thing I wanted. This is a passion I love. This is a thing I wake up wanting, and I go to bed thinking, how can I get it? Like it was my water, like I wanted this so bad. But when they were like, yeah, don't do this. This is like ridiculous. Why would you do this with your life? It forced me to say like kind of like two things like, well, let me show you. Also, it made me think, then I have to be better because I can't go out there and not do well. It like forced me to be better. It gave me motivation in a really difficult, like that was probably the most difficult thing in my entire life, is to have the conflicting, what do you call it? Like the conflicting relationship with them. Because there was a point where we just stopped talking. And it's kind of sad because there were a lot of moments I was dancing in New York where I would have loved if they had been there. I would have loved to have told them. There are many shows I told them I never told them I had. They don't even know. To this day, they don't know. It's just a culture thing, and I used to blame them for it, but I realized that's just how they were born. This is where they were. This is what they knew and what they didn't know, and I can't punish them for what they didn't know. And they did their best, and that's the thing. Is like parents do their best, and that's why I tell my kids that it is so important to grow up doing what you love. I know it's important. Education is important. The school that you go to is important. The job that you have is important. But you know what's more important is that you love what you're doing.
Right.
Period. I don't care anything else. The money will come. All of that will come. But you have to do what you love. If I didn't follow my dream and didn't do what I loved, I never would have met my husband. Never. Yeah. Because at that time I would have given up by then. But no, I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's a lot in there, but that's what therapy was for. But thank
Yeah.
you, Haley, for letting me.
Yeah. What you said is so perfect. And having that as kids, we have to go to school, we have to do this, we have to do that. But finding, even within the things that we have to do, finding the things that you love or feel passionate about, or having that be separate than what you do, just to be able to motivate you and fuel you. And like you said, have that be your water, like have that kind of be your lifeline. And I feel like even in sports in general, reminding your kids or reminding yourself why you started playing, why you started dancing, and what you genuinely love about the sport or whatever it is that you're doing, to have that be your fuel, no matter the rejections you get or whatever it is, especially when, in dance, like you're striving so much for perfection, being able to reflect on what it is about that you love and not getting too internal, and having that love be very outward and being intentional about it. Because I think that's a lot of the times, as collegiate athletes, as professional athletes, as high level performers, it's such a high pressure environment that love, it starts to feel like a job at some point, which yes, it might turn into a job, but also a job that you should love, and remembering the parts of it that you love, and not just the horrible, like negative, really like critical, difficult times of it. And really playing from your inner child athlete. All of what you said is just amazing, and I've learned so much from talking to you. But just to wrap it up, and on the topic of our younger selves and that love that we have now, being at the stage that you're at, having gone through everything that you went through, what is something that you would want to tell your younger self in regard to your mental health or your well-being in general, as the amazing dancer that you are?
I'm going to tell my younger self, gosh, so like this is hard to say, but I want to say, as a dancer my whole life, I also dealt with a lot of mental issues with myself, mental health issues that I didn't even know were mental health issues. I grew up not realizing that I had OCD, and that's not something I say publicly a lot. And actually, it's probably the first time I said it out loud. On camera, but I wasn't fully diagnosed until I was in my 20s. But I always knew I was a little different than my sisters. I was always doing some things different, and they used to laugh at me, and not because they're mean, but I know it's kids. And I would do certain things over and over again, and I would have to do something until it felt right. And it was kind of like, that's just how I was, and it kind of was very surface until as I got older, it got deeper and it got more internal and more, it was and still is like the biggest thing I have to deal with and the biggest thing I have to work through, and it's something I have to maintain through therapy and things like that. But I think if I had known that I had this and it didn't define me,
Right.
I think about all the times that I might have overly thought through things that I probably kind of really were destructive, and the things that I probably told myself, or I think that was probably due to the obsessiveness of like thinking about things a lot and doing things a lot. And I think if I could tell my younger self and my older self, probably that it's okay. I probably would say, you have this, and it's just, and gosh, it's so complicated I'm trying to think about like exactly what that means, but I think I would have said like, don't be so hard on yourself. I think that's what it is, because knowing you're like doing something, you're a little bit different than your sisters, your colleagues, your friends, and you realize there's something about you that needs a little bit more work and more love and care. I think I would tell myself that you could be nicer to yourself.
I feel like something you're maybe trying to say, and not to put words in your mouth, giving yourself grace and dealing with these things. And because I don't struggle with OCD, but the diagnosis of anxiety that I have, I know how much of the mental health diagnosis can kind of consume you. And even in my studies as a therapist and working with clients who have schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, how much they can like take over your life and kind of really create almost like a war zone in your mind that no one else can see. And with OCD and being a dancer, maybe that's a lot of what fueled you too, and what made you be the amazing dancer that you were. Because maybe if you didn't have those obsessive thoughts or whatever it was, maybe that was a form of motivation in and of itself. which for better or for worse, right? Like you got through it, you're here, amazing. But now you're, of course, dealing with the effects of that, the lingering effects, and still dealing with the OCD in the life that you have now. Even though it's not a highly competitive environment, it still can feel like that a lot of times mentally. And I love what you were saying about like, don't be too hard on yourself, because at the end of the day, you go home to yourself and your thoughts, and living with whatever thoughts those are. You want to water your mind with positive affirmations. And sometimes that's just not possible, but being more intentional about it.
100%, 100%. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Like looking back on it, I realized having OCD did fuel my way to be better and to make me better. Yeah. Probably had a lot to do with it. I mean, I was able to put it aside and not put it aside. No, that's a hard no. I was able to have it on the background instead of the foreground. And so my focus was really just, I think when you have a goal, that's it. Yeah. And maybe that's just maybe for me having OCD, I was able to put that in the background, always still alive, but my goal was to do this. But I think it did help me, and it did probably ignite something in me to do something. And maybe it was even just like the compulsiveness of like doing things over and over and over again, you know? There's even a basketball player that I heard that has it, and they just kept doing the shots over and over and over, like because that's just, he just had to get it right. He had to get it right, you know? Right. But at the same time, you have to give yourself grace, right? Yeah. Even right.
Yeah. And even like on the clinical side, just to differentiate some things real quick, like OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is an official diagnosis that someone can have. But then what I think people get confused with a lot of times in environments like we both were in is some OCD behavior. So there's some OCD like behaviors that a lot of athletes probably develop. And I feel like I definitely had some of them, like leading workouts. I always had to I always had to make a swish from the top of the 3-point line, a swish, a free throw, and then finish with a left-hand layup. But I had to do them all in a row.
Always had to do that?
Yeah, to end my workouts.
Okay.
And same with like kind of like superstitions of like that can be an OCD like behavior. I remember in high school when we were in the playoffs, I would wear the same socks without washing them. Saying that sounds so disgusting, but
it's someone who's OCD about germs, that's so disgusting.
But I think it's an important distinction to make for athletes or for anyone of like, you might have OCD behavior, but that doesn't mean you have a full-fledged diagnosis.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you.
They're very different.
Yes, they are. And if you don't have OCD and you say, "Oh, I have OCD," please don't say it like so flippantly, like it happens on like 20 like 2 days out of the week. Like it's a real thing. It's a real diagnosis. It's a brutal thing. It's something you have to work through your whole life. But
absolutely.
So I want to share my thing. I always had to do. Yeah. I always had to put my tights on with my right foot. And then, and then it went through, and then I had to always do my shoe on it was my right foot, and then lace all the side on that side. And then I had to do the entire first number through my mind mentally and my body, like in fast forward motion, the first number, the whole thing until I could get on stage. It's just, you know what I mean? It's
it works.
But it can make you good. You know, it's a beautiful thing, and it's a brutal thing, right? Yeah. Having the thing that you love that gave you the most joy in your life. Right. It's basketball, right? For me, it's dance, and I've never felt anything like that again. But we're so lucky we got to feel it, and it's beautiful. Yeah. But it's also brutal.
It is.
It's not easy.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Sae La, for taking time out of your day and opening up about all of that. I think there's always so much strength and vulnerability, and I'm sure there's other athletes, other dancers, performers who are going to listen to this and feel super inspired and be able to take what you said to heart and really implement it into their lives. So thank you so much for joining us in the mental training room today.
Thank you, Haley. Appreciate so much the safe space. Appreciate you.
And that's a wrap for today's session in the mental training room. If you found value in this episode, make sure to subscribe to our show, share it with a teammate, friend, parent, or anyone you think would benefit from listening, and follow us on the Instagram at mtr.pod.
We'll catch you next time inside the mental training room. If you are currently experiencing a mental health crisis, please dial 988 for emergency support.